This happened when I was 29 and bought my first house in California. It was a small two-bedroom place built in the 1970s. The housing market was crazy, and I felt lucky to afford anything. The previous owner was an elderly woman who lived there over 30 years. She'd passed away and her children were selling. The house needed updating, but was mine. I moved in on a Saturday in March, spent the whole day unpacking, arranging furniture. By evening, I was exhausted, but happy. That first night, around 2 a.m., I woke to footsteps in the hallway. Slow, shuffling footsteps. They stopped outside my bedroom door, then continued toward the kitchen. I grabbed my phone, checked every room, all doors and windows locked. I was alone. I convinced myself I'd been dreaming. Old houses settle. The next night, same thing. 2 a.m. Footsteps in the hallway, stopping at my door, continuing to the kitchen. This time, I went to the kitchen immediately. Nothing there. But the kitchen light was on. I turned off all lights before bed. It became a pattern. Every night at 2 a.m., footsteps. Every morning, the kitchen light on. I started leaving the light on before bed to test it. The next morning, it would be off. Then, other things started. I'd come home to find cabinet doors open. The thermostat adjusted to 72 degrees. I kept it at 68. Small items moved, keys on the counter instead of the hook. One evening, I heard water running in the bathroom. The sink faucet was on, full blast. I turned it off, confused. I hadn't been in that bathroom for hours. I mentioned it to my neighbor, an older man who'd lived there for decades. "You bought the Morrison place," he said. "Helen Morrison lived there forever. The previous owner, she passed away, right?" He nodded. "Nice lady, very specific routine. Every night at 2 a.m., she'd get up, walk to the kitchen, have a glass of water. Every single night for years. You could set your clock by it." My skin went cold. 2 a.m.? Yep, creature of habit. Always kept the kitchen light on at night. Said it helped her not trip when she got up for water. How did she die? Found her in the kitchen one morning. Heart attack. She was getting her morning coffee. That explained everything. But it didn't make it less terrifying. I tried to rationalize it. Old houses make noise. I was imagining patterns. But 3 weeks after moving in, something happened I couldn't explain. I woke at 2 a.m. to the footsteps. This time, I decided to confront it. I walked into the hallway. At the end of the hall, the kitchen light was on. And standing at the sink was an elderly woman in a nightgown, filling a glass with water. I couldn't move. I watched as she raised the glass to her lips, took a drink, set it on the counter. She turned around. Her face was pale, eyes dark and sunken, but peaceful. She looked directly at me. Then she smiled. A gentle, grandmotherly smile. She walked toward me. I pressed against the wall, terrified. She passed right by, close enough that I felt a cold draft, and continued to what had been her bedroom. She disappeared through the closed door. I stood shaking for minutes. Then I went to the kitchen. The glass was on the counter, still wet. The next morning, I called the realtor. Did the previous owner die in the house? Pause. Yes, in the kitchen. Why? Did you know when you sold it to me? In California, we only disclose deaths within 3 years. Mrs. Morrison died 4 years ago. Is there a problem? 4 years dead, but still here, following her routine. I didn't move out. That smile, the way she'd looked at me, she wasn't trying to scare me. She was just existing in the space that had been her home. The footsteps still happen most nights. The kitchen light still turns on and off. Sometimes I find the glass on the counter, but I'm not scared anymore. I leave a glass by the sink for her. I keep the kitchen light on like she preferred. Sometimes I smell coffee brewing at dawn, even though I don't drink coffee. She's just not ready to leave. This was her home for 30 years. I've stopped trying to understand it. I just live here, sharing my house with someone who lived here first. Sometimes at 2 a.m., I'll hear the footsteps and whisper, "Good night, Helen." I never hear a response. But in the morning, the glass is always there, placed exactly where she always put it. And somehow that's become comforting. This happened when I was 31, and my wife Emma and I bought our first house in California. Older neighborhood, 1960s, 3 bedrooms, with a basement. Unusual for California. We got a good deal because it needed work. Previous owners moved out of state quickly, seemed eager to sell. We moved in during summer. The house was great except for one thing that bothered me from day one: the basement door in the kitchen. Heavy wooden door with an old slide bolt lock on the outside. Not a regular lock, a slide bolt, the kind to lock someone in, not out. Why lock a basement from the outside? Emma asked. The realtor shrugged. Safety, keep kids from going down unsupervised. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed beams, storage space. Cold and damp. 2 weeks after moving in, I went down for a box of books. As I was leaving, I noticed scratch marks on the inside of the door. Deep gouges in the wood, clustered around the doorknob, like someone desperately tried to claw their way out. Probably from a dog, Emma said. But the marks were too high, human hand height. A few days later, I was storing paint cans when I heard the basement door close. The bolt slid into place. "Emma!" I shouted, pounding. "Did you just lock this?" "I'm in the bedroom," her voice came from upstairs. She came down and opened it, confused. How did that happen? The bolt was old and stiff, required deliberate force to move. Over the next month, it happened 3 more times, always when I was alone. Door closes, bolt slides. I started carrying my phone, feeling anxious every time I needed something from down there. Then one evening, organizing tools, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Crying. A child crying, faintly, coming from the walls themselves. A child sobbing, whimpering. "Hello?" I called. "Is someone there?" The crying stopped immediately. I searched the entire basement. Nothing, but I knew what I'd heard. "We need to find out about this house's history," I told Emma. "Something's not right." We researched for a week. Then Emma found a newspaper article from 1982. Local child missing. A 7-year-old boy disappeared from the neighborhood. Last seen playing near his home. Massive search, no trace. The address was our street, 2 houses down. Follow-up article 6 months later. Case went cold. Family moved away. "The basement was added in the early 1980s, I said, checking permit records. We talked to the oldest resident, a man in his 80s. "Do you remember when our house added the basement?" 82, right after that boy went missing. Terrible thing. They dug up half the neighborhood looking for him. "Did they search our property?" "Oh, sure. Never found the trace." "Who owned our house then?" "Richard Webb. Lived alone, kept to himself. Moved away around 85 or 86. Heard he died a few years back." That night, I went to the basement alone and spoke out loud. "If someone's here, if you're trying to tell me something, I'm listening." The crying started again. I followed the sound to the far corner behind some shelves. "Where are you?" The crying grew louder, coming from the wall. The concrete wall. I looked at the floor. One section looked different, newer, smoother. I moved the shelves. The crying continued, muffled, like it was beneath the floor. I called the police the next morning. They brought ground-penetrating radar, found an anomaly, got a warrant. They broke through the concrete. 3 feet down, they found him. The boy from 1982, still in the clothes he disappeared in. The autopsy suggested he'd been alive when buried. Survives for days, crying for help, scratching at the door bolted from the outside. Richard Webb had died 3 years earlier. Never a suspect. The helpful neighbor who'd volunteered to search while the child was locked in his basement. We moved out immediately, put the house on the market. Sometimes I wonder if he was trying to tell us all along. The door locking, trapping me so I'd understand. The crying, leading me to where he was. I hope he can rest now. I hope being found gave him peace. But I'll never forget that sound. A child crying in the dark, alone and terrified, for 40 years.
I bought a small California house to flip. Buy cheap, renovate, self a profit. The house was a foreclosure, sold as is. Built in mid 1950s, 2 bedrooms, neglected but not damaged. The house was empty except for abandoned items. In the master bedroom was a large mirror, beautiful antique, full length, ornate gold frame, worth hundreds. I was surprised they'd left it. I started renovation after my day job, working until 9 or 10 p.m. The mirror stayed. I had planned to sell it separately. One evening, painting the living room, I caught movement in my peripheral vision. Through the bedroom door, I saw the mirror's reflection. Someone stood in the bedroom, a woman in a white dress facing away from the mirror. I ran to the bedroom. Empty. I looked at the mirror, only my reflection, alone. I convinced myself I was tired, long days catching up with me. But 2 nights later, working in the kitchen, I glanced toward the bedroom. In the mirror, the woman in white stood in the same position. I walked slowly to the bedroom, watching the mirror. The woman's reflection remained, though the room was empty. As I got closer, she turned around in the reflection. Pale face, dark eyes, sad expression. She looked directly at me and mouthed something I couldn't hear. I looked at the actual room, empty. Looked back at the mirror. She was gone. The mirror had to go. I grabbed the frame to take it down. The moment I touched it, I felt cold. Not just cold air. Cold that went through my hands, up my arms, into my chest. I let go and stepped back. That night, I researched the house. Found the previous owner's name, an obituary from 8 months ago. A woman died in the house. Suicide. Husband found her in the bedroom. The bank foreclosed after he abandoned the property. Her photo was in the obituary. The same woman I'd seen. I called a friend into paranormal stuff. She came over that evening. We stood in the bedroom watching the reflection. For minutes, nothing. Then she appeared. The woman in white, standing behind us in the reflection, though the room was empty. My friend grabbed my arm. "Do you see her?" "Yes." The woman stepped forward in the mirror. Her lips moved. "Help me." "How?" my friend called. "How can we help?" The woman pointed down at the floor in the reflection. We looked at the actual floor. Old hardwood, nothing unusual. She kept pointing insistently. "She wants us to look under the floor," my friend said. The next day, I pulled up the floorboards. Underneath, a small metal box. Inside were letters, love letters, dozens, written by the woman to someone who wasn't her husband. Letters detailing an affair, plans to run away, a forbidden love. The last letter was different, from her lover breaking things off, saying he couldn't leave his family, dated 1 week before her death. She'd hidden these letters, her secret, under the floor, killed herself after losing him. Now trapped, her spirit connected to the mirror, unable to rest while her secrets remained hidden. My friend suggested we burn the letters, release her. We burned them outside in a metal can, watching the paper turn to ash. That night, I stood in front of the mirror one last time. She appeared in the reflection, this time smiling. She mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Then she faded away. I never saw her again. I finished the renovation and sold the house. Included the mirror. Seemed wrong to take it. Sometimes I wonder if she's still there, or if burning those letters set her free. I hope it's the latter. Love can trap us. Secrets can bind us, even after death.